Thank you, Ravi, and frustrations pronounced to Swami, Shri Prasad, and to all the members in this August gathering. From not just me, but my team at Mantra, the corporate training organization, as you were told. And what we believe is that attitude is everything. So that is really where the peace starts. I'll start with the story. I want to thank you for being here, and there's nothing better on a lazy Sunday afternoon than to hear a funny story. So there was a village in England where there were identical twins. Two boys who grew up, one became the doctor of the village and one became the pastor at church. One day, as the doctor was going along on his cycle to his clinic, a young old lady stops him and says, I want you to stop. And then she says, I want to thank you because last Sunday when I came to church, I was very depressed. But by the time you lifted my spirits, I felt enough reason to live, not just to live, but to live well. And I must thank you for this, Father. And the man got off the cycle, smiled, very embarrassed, and he said, you must be meaning my brother. He is the one who preaches, and I'm the one who practices. Many of you realize that doctors are supposed to practice, and of course, preachers are supposed to preach in religious places. But in reality, there should be the twins in each one of us, ones who practice and the ones who preach. Only if both happen, the world will go on to become what it is destined to be. So unless you walk your talk, as they say in English, you cannot be called a good enough human being. They say in Vedanta, and this is where my experience comes from the lotus feet of Swami Chinmananji, with whom I had the privilege of growing up in my formative years. I don't think I've done enough justice for the love and grace that he has showered on me, but it is such meetings and conferences that make me believe that there must be a reason why I have gone through what I have. This is what I have learned from Vedanta at his feet, that ultimately peace is not something you can find in the world unless you find it in the mind first. Luckily for me, the speaker who just preceded me touched upon this very important aspect about how peace is born in the minds of man. And I'm going to be repeating pretty much many of the things that have been said in the last 3 days. We are on day 3. And Swami Chinmananji, my guru, used to love saying this, that you must be tired listening to so many people. And he used to also joke that peace conferences are often the places where war breaks out. So we have to be very aware that unless we practice what we preach, and unless we preach what we practice, and in Vedanta, this is very beautifully explained in 3 simple words. You can be a sajjana, a good human being, lived all the values, did what you were supposed to do. That's not enough. You also have to give back to society through education. That is called sakriya, doing something for others, sakriya, doing good for others. And then the 3rd level is satsanga, collaboration. All people who do good must come together. Only then society is safe. Dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. So you are saved only if you live by the rules that save or protect dharma. And then dharma, of course, does its bit to save you. So education, I think, is the very, very basis of a good society. And I'm not going to be talking too much about it, but sharing a few thoughts through my PowerPoint presentation so that I can run through. And in the tradition of TEDx or TED Talks, 20 minutes is more than enough to say what you want to say. If you can't say it in 20 minutes, it's not worth telling anybody. Having said that, you'll have to say it 100 times before people actually do something about it. So today I'm going to pick on a teaser topic. The education that we talk about starts with ABCD. Literacy starts with ABCD. So I'm going to use that. And of course, if you're from Sweden, you probably like the choice that my colleague in the office chose, because there's a bit of the Swedish flag in the background, if you want to imagine that. But nothing to do with Sweden, nothing to do with any country, just a choice of colors. So ABCD of right education for peace and reconciliation. And so I'm going to make a very quick presentation. I'll start with the greeting that the great Swami Sathguru Gnanananda Sarasvathi made familiar to all of you, to especially to Swami Hariprasad Swami. Namaste. And what do I want to share with you today? Before I start, I need two things from you, which I think is the basis of right education. A smile on your face to show that you're confident, and an open mind to show that you will accept the world as it is, not as you want it to be. This is the first change that many of us can make. We get so carried away by the mission that we're on in the world that we forget to smile, we forget to laugh, we forget to be the way we were when we were born, Satchit Ananda. I hope my friend from Denmark is tuning in today. He said he will maybe on YouTube. And his name is Satchitananda, the one that he chose after getting into spiritual practice. And we're all aware of this term, that we are born the very essence of truth, Sat. When we become aware of it, it is Chit. But unless we experience the happiness, there is no Ananda. So we talk a lot about peace and we get into wars over peace. It seems an acronym, it seems a irony that people talk about peacekeeping force. That's what we call the Indian army when it went into Sri Lanka in the 90s. Peacekeeping force. Do you need a force to keep peace? Well, when people are not wanting peace, it becomes very difficult. Like the Boy Scout who came late to school, and when the teacher asked him why, he said, because I was trying to help an old lady cross the road. That can't take so long. He said, well, she didn't want to cross the road. So if you decide you want to make her cross the road and you're going to force her to do it, then peace is very difficult. Reconciliation is very difficult. So having said that, next slide, Shyam, and yes, we'll go with your, the very logo, which is the essence of the foundation, Vishnu Foundation. And even the Governor of Kerala, His Excellency, mentioned this the other day in his opening speech. What do we mean by that? And what is the key word I'm looking for there? Pavitram ihavidyate. What is the difference? If you don't divinize your education, then you can't call it education. You can call it literacy. Divinity in education is the only right education that can bring peace and reconciliation in the world. And how do we divinize? We have to inspire people. In fact, we have to remember that whenever we open a school in this world, we close down a potential prison. When we deny people the right to learn and to grow, we actually create lack of opportunities, which leads to crime in the world. Next. I hope I'm making independent points, which will make a lot of sense to you by the end of it, like a sutra, a Brahma Sutra Mala, where each point makes. So if you're making notes, great. If you're not, even better. I can get away with whatever I say. Education should prepare a child, and COVID-19 was a great example, which taught people all over the world that we cannot plan or prepare a future for our children. But we can plan and prepare our children for the future by putting in the right thoughts, by putting in the right ideas, by putting in the right values into children. And Swami Chinmayananda, my guru, and I can't help sharing his thoughts when I speak, because I am what he wanted me to be, or at least I submitted to what he said, which applies to all the scriptures in the world. And what he said was, children are not, they are lamps to be lit and not vessels to be filled with information. So if you fill children with information, then they grow up to be very, very insecure, very greedy, very passionate, and lusty people who use their information the wrong way. They use their knowledge the wrong way. Unless you light the lamp and create a need to lift yourself by yourself, as the Gita says, you're not really creating the right education. We have to lift ourselves by ourselves, and others are there as guides. They are mentors. I wonder if we are creating mentors in society today or tormentors, people who harass you to try and achieve what you want. And of course, you don't get the right results. Next. So at Mantra, we came up with this program 20 years ago on personal effectiveness, which we call The Key is Me. And where I often mention the me is about mental energy, because if you tap the mental energy of people, you get the best out of them. They're willing and they are ready to do what you want them to do. This is why today we have the famous story of guided missiles in the hands of misguided mind. That's what is happening in society. With the right education, you can have guided missiles in the minds of guided minds, in the hands of guided minds. And I think the speaker before me was from Israel. Israel is a great example of how they've used technology to make them guided missiles in the hands of guided minds. If you create the right children, they will help others, protect them through use of technology rather than abuse technology. I'm not going to people who don't do it. I'm talking about people I know who are doing it, like Singapore, like Israel. There are many, many countries that you can learn from, Japan. Having said that, you're always very careful as a speaker, like the man who had two wives. If he said one looked pretty, the other immediately snarled at him and said, what about me? Does that mean I don't look well? So whenever I say something as a speaker, please don't be judgmental about it. Keep the open mind. Maybe there is something in what I'm saying. If you can find it, great. Next. So the me also stands for morality and ethics. If you plant that, you get guided minds. Otherwise, you get misguided minds. And that's the point I wanted to make in the last slide. So before we go on to log into a new world of education, and what is that? WWW. Next. Win-win world. Create a win-win world where life is a game to be played and not a war to be won or lost. So can we create a world where people see, children see the world as a win-win world? I can do my best and there is enough for everyone. And I can enjoy the rest. I can compete with them. They can do better than me, but I can clap for them. The IPL, the famous Indian Premier League going on in Dubai at the moment, in the Emirates, is a good example. At the end of the match, all the competitors who were ready to strangle each other to win the match, they relax in the post-match presentation. They stand around the field from all parts of the world. They're collaborative in talking about the game, and they discuss the attitude of trying to win and not making sure the others lose. So I think this is the new education that we need in society. Create a win-win world, and that's my WWW. Next. Yep, you were right about it. Win-win is just to remember that there is enough for everyone's need. And today what we see is a lose-lose, which is never going to be enough even for one person's greed. Of course, I'm paying homage to the father of the nation. Only yesterday we talked about two great Indians, Mahatma Gandhi and Lal Bahadur Shastri, two great leaders of this country born yesterday on the 2nd of October. And one of them always reminds us of the song Vaishnavi Janato. And I have a very favorite memory that links me to the Vishnu Mohan Foundation, because I have a great affinity for the great mystic Narsi Mehta, who wrote that song, Vaishnava Janato. And that one key word is samadrishti. If we can develop equanimity in our vision, again, one of the speakers on day one spoke about samadrishti. I was very happy to hear it. And if we can develop that in our education, the ability to look beyond your own needs to a win-win world will always keep us safe from a lose-lose world. Today, we are forced into that situation. Expansionist tendencies are controlled because we are afraid of crossing the line, but actually it should come from abundance. The fact that all of us have enough in the world, let's share win-win. Why go to a lose-lose? Why be afraid of a lose-lose and avoid a lose-lose? I think that is something we need to think about. Next. So what does education look like? I think the first change we have to make is the change from prayers to Shreyas. Vedantic terms, prayers, immediate gratification, immediate pleasure. Shreyas, we know lots of people named Shreyas, I'm sure in your own society anywhere in India, you will have someone named Shreyas. Probably doesn't even know the name of the meaning of the name. Shreyas is ultimate glory. Delayed gratification, work hard during the exams, wait for the grades, move to the next level, never look back with regret. And that is Shreyas, Punya. Do something, immediately get a stab of lust and pleasure, then regret that you wasted your time, missed your opportunities. That's prayers, very familiar for most of us. I'm sure we have learned the hard way that Shreyas is better. From reactive to proactive, can we make our children more proactive rather than reactive? When they're small, they react. We have to make them think and respond. The famous Nazi hero who wrote the book, I don't need to mention him, Viktor Frankl, we can never forget, right? Just that little space between action and reaction. If you can put a little thought into that, a lot of us become very powerful. Pleasure to pressure. Can we stop, idolizing pleasure? Oh, tomorrow's a holiday and everybody claps. The first thing you do when you get your school calendar or your school diary is to check on the holidays. Can we shift that to, can you look at when you get your grades, when you get your scholarships? Can we shift the whole, the whole focus to putting pressure on yourself, right? And not unhealthy, but proactive pressure. That's why I put it on the right side. Convenience to conviction. Can we shift to more living on conviction? Never mind if I was wrong. Even if you cut my body into 10 parts, each part of my body will say, I did the right thing. Can I grow up with that conviction? Taiwan is another country where children are brainwashed because they know that the elder brother across the sea is very unkind. And then the children are told, you cannot give up. You cannot give up. And in fact, when you're 5 or 6, you believe that your country is the biggest in the world. Your father and mother are the greatest in the world. But when you grow up, you realize the reality. And still the pride remains because you say, hey, it can't be for nothing that I will. And that's called emotional intelligence, which of course all of you know about. I'm not going there. Of course, the last and the biggest change is comfort to challenge. Can we throw more challenge into jobs rather than offer them bigger salary packages? And even in school, when we hire out of colleges, are we trying to tempt them with better packages, or are we tempting them with greater challenges? If you do this, they'll send you to America because they'll let you work on the Ford project or the Microsoft project. Can we really widen horizons by building better goals for children? Next. What I forget? So what we need is 3 rules of thinking to be there. And these are all Vedantic thoughts. So you can always look them up. You'll probably find better notes wherever you go than the one I'm providing you. But I just want to touch on these points. Can our education talk about shifting the quality of thinking? which is natural when you're a child to be self-preservative. We are tamasic. We like to eat, we like to sleep. I mean, these are natural states when we are young. As we grow, can we move into rajas? And I would use the three words, the three gunas, tamas, rajas, and sattva, which are Vedantic words. Many of you across the world may not know what it means. I would simplify them with management terms. Dependence is tamas. Independence is rajas. I don't need you. The world doesn't need me. I don't need the world, which happens when you're young, when you're a growing up teenager. But sattva, when you really realize it finally, is interdependence. This again has been a theme in this conference. Can it be a part of our education? Can we shift the mind from total abject surrender and dependence to independence and a pride in who you are, what you do, to the next level of sattva, where many monks live across the world with no fear of authority. You know how they live? Don't walk as if you're the king. Walk as if you don't care who is the king. If you can live at that level of sattva, the body is just two. If it can be taken away by someone, so be it. I will come back, because the spirit or the Atma, the Brahman that we talk about, the Paramatman, is beyond all this. If you have that view, the world view that Vedanta has is there in all religions, but only a few chosen, courageous people practice. So what is another term? Fixity, which is tamas, to flexibility, which is do it if I need to fluidity, I can fit into any part wherever I go. Can I do that? Possible. So how do I indicate that to a child? Black, red, and white. Which one would you choose? And if I told the child that black means you're a lazy boy, red means, well, you can, but you're not doing enough. And white means you'll do whatever you can for your family. And then I think a boy or a girl will learn that there is sacrifice at one end and there is compromise at the other end of the spectrum. So what happens finally? Devolution, if you're going downwards, the same spiral, you can be going down the wrong spiral staircase. The devolution in society, consumerism. Okay, another word for that I would use is bhoga, or no, I would call it roga. You abuse the system so much that you start suffering. Or you can at least stay at one level, as we are in many countries, through revolution. We counteract and counterbalance all the forces so that I may win, I may not win, but I won't let you win. Right? And you go round and round the same revolving door, which I call bhoga. You enjoy the world, but you don't really move ahead. But the real transformation is when you start going up in your thinking, and we reach the stage that we say simple living and high thinking, which is called evolution, and that word is yoga. So can we avoid roga, which is really the big challenge of the world, right? Taking care of sick people. Why should the whole world work on keeping me healthy when I can take care of myself? But we don't. We allow people to abuse themselves and then take them to an asylum for de-addiction, and then spend a lot of money on de-addicting an addicted person. Revolution, well, we won't allow it. You're afraid, so you smoke in silence. You don't let anyone know that you are on weed. That's not the answer. And of course, the ultimate answer is focusing on training children for yoga. And luckily today, India is seen as the biggest example for promoting yoga and Ayurveda across the world. Next, I'm coming to the end. So at Mantra, we came up with a model of education which we use in management, but we would like it to go to all schools. Right? And I'm now writing my book on it. So this is a great time to tell you that self-awareness, enthusiasm, and assertiveness are the only three qualities that we need to become successful and as professional. So if you take all the three, then you say S for self-awareness, E for enthusiasm, A for assertiveness. And the E that I talk about, enthusiasm, is the Ananda state that you're born in before you loaded and your backpack and carry so much of bias and so many contradictions that you can't reconcile, and therefore the world is not living in reconciliation. Enthusiasm is about that, but self-awareness is slotting yourself. Know your limitations. You're born this way. This is the way it is. I love the phrase, it is what it is. I hear great cricket players saying it. I hear great CEOs of companies saying it. I hear great scientists saying it. It is what it is. You have to accept nature as it is. So self-awareness is slotting yourself. What is slot? S-L-O-T. Know your strengths, know your limitations, know your opportunities, know your threats. Take a sheet of paper, divide it into 4, write down your own. If you can help a child do that early in life, they will develop their strengths and then weaken their weaknesses when required. They will work on their opportunities and they will remove their threats on their own. So S-L-O-T. And then, of course, what is assertiveness? Simple. Make it a part of your curriculum to make every child think win-win. Right? It's not only for me, but it's not only for you as well. I will stand up for myself. That's the greatest win-win statement in the world. Let me learn to stand up. Of course, it's easy to say. I'm in my 60s. It took me so many years to even understand this. Forget about living it. In spite of being in the care and grace of a great master, a true master, it took me years to work on myself to become at least good enough to understand it and talk about it. Now I have to live it. That will happen later. It's like the cannibal. It's only a story, don't take me wrong. If there are cannibalists out here, excuse me for the story. So the cannibal king sent his son to Oxford, got a fine degree. Coming back, there's a big reception. So his best friend says, I want to come there to Africa to see the reception when you're going back from Oxford. So I'm coming with you on the plane. And when he got on the plane, this guy says, show me the passenger list. I don't want the menu for first class passengers. Show me the passenger list. And his friend says, hey, don't forget, you're an Oxford graduate. Why are you asking for the passenger list? He said, well, education is only education. Living is living. So every one of us have to practice what we learn. They think education is only education. It's something you go to school and do. But parents actually cut the traffic lights, and the child learns that in India, anyone can cut a traffic light. It's not a big deal. So how do you educate a child who's learning the wrong values unless you practice it yourself? Last, I think we're coming to the end. So that's my mantra. Next, is that it? Yeah. So we'll go back to what the previous speaker said. And this is the preamble of the United Nations Charter in 1945. And I'm very proud to say, as a Rotarian, that Rotary was the only non-governmental organization invited to form the Charter of the United Nations, along with the member countries. Rotary was the only NGO. And what does it say? It says, war does not start on the battlefield. It starts in the minds of men. And it is in the minds of men that bastions of peace must be built. So we have to become Sakriya, plant these bastions of peace. Tell people violence is a no-no. I mean, make people laugh at jokes. You can say, Gandhiji was a non-violinist, but Punnapudi Jayaraman was a violinist. I mean, it's a good joke. If you understand it, if you don't understand it, please find out. Or if you say Yehudi Mainuhin was a violinist, but Gandhiji was a non-violinist. But the reality is, you have to plant these seeds of peace in every young mind. And next. So it's not the United Nations that has failed. Its member nations. This is the big debate now in all the newspapers. I think the members have failed the United Nations by their lack of unity for progress, peace, and prosperity. Unless there is, and I'm glad that our Prime Minister of this great country, India, is one of the many few people across the world, many concerned people across the world working on more and more bilateral, trilateral, multilateral collaborative issues. So it is this that we need to tell our children. And next. So why did I choose the topic? And you're wondering why I've reached the end and I've not talked about it. What is the ABCD of right education? Change the attitude. Only then there'll be a change in behavior. Only then will the character change. And only then will the destiny of the child and the nation be changed. So don't talk selfishness today. Don't mourn it. Don't curse it. Start working on your own attitude till it becomes your behavior. So attitude is it's a tendency that you have to behave in a particular way. Unless you watch it at that point, you can't control the thoughts and the flow of your mind and the feelings that lead to behavior. And then once you do it, there was a supermarket, and I promise you, no more corny jokes this afternoon. So there was a supermarket where this boy was running helter-skelter, and the elderly man, a slightly grown version of the monkey face, was standing and watching him indulgently like a father. The general manager of the store approached him and said, "Sir, if that's your son, please stop him because he's creating a riot here." But before he reached him, this man was standing and saying, "Ravi, don't do that, Ravi. Ravi, I didn't choose your name. I know my friend Ravi Gopal Krishna here. The story I always pick the name Ravi. I don't know why." So he said, "Ravi, don't do that. Ravi, this is not fair. Ravi, you better stop it." So the general manager shook this man and said, "If you talk to him like this, that boy is not going to stop, sir." And this man with a saintly look turned around and told the general manager of the store, "Who said I'm talking to him? I'm telling myself." So unless you tell yourself how to behave, you're not going to change your behavior. So be assertive. And with that, I come to the end of my slides with one line that I'm going to actually play for you. But before that, make a note. Individual perfection alone leads to world perfection. You cannot have a perfect world. Even if one brick in the wall is weak, the wall is completely vulnerable. So unless we work on each and every unit of mankind through right education, we cannot get there. Having said that, you can only think of your starfish, the one that you saved on the shore and threw into the sea, is the only thing that you can look at. You can't think of saving all the starfish in the sea. So, I again trust it to my Guru Swami Gnanananda, but also to the great Guru who inspired this conference. This is the sixth conference, I think, and Sathguru Gnanananda Sarasvathi, herself a mystic and a great saint, and of course Swami Shri Hariprasad is a great influence on many people like me. I thank you for that. Next slide. Just to say a thank you, pranams to Sathguru Swami Gnanananda Saraswathi and gratitude to Swami Shri Hariprasad, prostration at the feet of Puja Gurudev Swami Gnanananda. I'll indulge you for just, or rather you should indulge me for just 2 more minutes. I'm going to play a video that I've told Shyam to play now and get it straight from the master to endorse what I spoke today. I hope I said the right thing. Thank you once again. We play the video and then I'll sign it off.
That the world progresses forward and you and I will have to adapt to the new conditions available around. If we are not able to adapt, nature has no compunction. It will wipe us clean. Have they not? Many plants have become extinct in nature. Many animals have become extinct in nature. Now then, friends, each individual is a unit in this universe, in this world. And all these individuals put together is called the community or the nation or the world itself. Apart from the individuals, there is no world. All of you put together without any distinction and differences, all your minds put together is the world outside. So if the majority of the minds are selfish, arrogant, utterly egocentric, vulgar, without a character, that society, that community will be of the same character. The nation, there is no nation, only a country where a population lives. There is no integrity between them. And internationally, no understanding. Individual, through individual perfection alone, world perfection can be aspired. This is the conclusion arrived at by the great thinkers of the past. In all scriptures of the world, I am not talking of Vedanta or the Indian textbooks. Is not Bible saying the same? Is not the Quran saying the same? Is the Brahmapada or the Buddhist saying the same? Every great master who has given enough thought to it has understood that the cause for the sorrows of the world outside is the imperfection or the disturbance of your own mind.
Thank you very much.